Hi, everybody. I'm Micah Hoffman, and I'd like to take just a moment before I get into my presentation to thank Authenticate for having me here to talk to you about open source intelligence. My goal here is to help you understand how to go from the place where you are in your OSINT knowledge and skills and abilities to a place that's a little bit farther along and closer to the expert. And I thought one of the great ways to do this would be by looking at some case work that we were working on recently in open source intelligence. Now, all of the images that you see here are AI generated. None of this is actually real case data. So just know that as we go through this. But a customer came to us and said, hey, we had a thing that happened on a canal in a certain place in the world. And here's a picture. And they gave us a picture, much like what you see here on the screen. And they asked us to figure out where in the world this happened so that they could move forward in their case, either finding a victim or a witness or finding the people that did whatever it was. Our job was geolocation. And I love geolocation, especially of images. So what we did was we broke down the image. We started looking at it and we pulled out the type of trees that were in there. Only certain foliage only grows in certain parts of the world. So if we could figure out what types of trees these were based upon their leaf shapes, we can maybe narrow it down. We looked at other physical features that we saw in the picture, like the railing style, the railing shape, the railing color, how far away it was from the edge and all. Then we looked at things like the light posts, because these are products that can be purchased from somewhere and maybe captured in a lot of different pictures of certain places in the world. And we can use skills like reverse image searching to locate some other images that might have had these light fixtures. Of course, there were other pieces of data in the picture that we could search on: the style of bridge, the walkway, the pattern of the pavers or the concrete that was on either side of the canal. But there was one big piece of data that was given to us that we didn't really realize was important until later on. This data was the date the image was supposedly taken. And I'm not sure how they actually got this, but they gave us this date of July 17th, 2002, or whatever it was at that time. And, well, we started to do our OSINT work. We knew this was over in Asia because the customer had told us that. So we started searching. We started looking for canals over in Asia using an Asian search engine like Baidu. And you could see that we did searching. We looked through pictures and we tried and we tried and we tried and we tried and we tried. I can't tell you how many images of canals over in Asia I looked at, how many Google Street View or Bing Street View type of imagery and satellite images I looked at across weeks. And I think it was months, actually. And as time went by, we kept working on this, but we weren't finding what we needed. And so at a certain point, I went back to this image and I was like, you know what? One of the things that we always teach students in our classes is to look at the image and pull out a whole bunch of different things, not just the main things that stick out, but little things. And so, we went through and we pulled out the leaf style and the railing, just like we did before, but we kept that list going. And what we noticed was that after a while, we started seeing that there were shadows. And the shadow was from a certain tree of a certain size, and it was pointing a certain direction. And if it was pointing a certain direction on a certain day, we may be able to figure out what time of day it was. Or maybe we can figure out the angle of the sun and where that angle of the sun could actually be. Because on a certain day of the year, in a certain year, that sun can only be coming from a certain angle in parts of the world. Higher or lower latitudes, the sun will be at different angles. So if we could identify what latitudes that sun could be shining from, maybe we could narrow down the parts of Asia that we're looking at. So we went to suncalc.org, an amazing website that helped us do that. We plugged in the date, July 17th, 2002. We then set the time roughly for the angle that the shadow would appear. based upon how we had oriented the image and what we knew was north. Then we started looking at the latitudes. And when we picked out the latitudes, we figured out what latitude could generate that image of the picture. Then we went to Google Earth. And on Google Earth, we essentially put those latitude lines as bars or barriers and said, well, somewhere in between this is probably where our target was. And again, we went to work. We started looking at Google Earth imagery, satellite imagery, and more. And eventually, I think it was about a week later, one of our teammates found the exact location that the image had been taken. And we rejoiced. It was great. But it was one of those things where all of those pieces came together. Now, I wasn't always an OSINT person. This is like my 5th career over time. And I want to take you back before I was in the world of OSINT to a time when I was, yeah, you guessed it. I was a cybersecurity penetration tester, a hacker. And one of the things I did was I worked on doing assessments of web pages. My customer would come. They would tell us, hey, we want you to come and attack our website, pretend like you are breaking into it, and then tell us where the weaknesses are, and we'll go ahead and plug those up so that real bad guys can't get in here. And what I did over the course of years with many different customers is I would test their website, I would check it for vulnerabilities, I would report those vulnerabilities, tell them why they should care, give them the report, and then move on. And I found that a lot of the customers were just doing the security assessments to get a check mark that we've had an assessment done, and they weren't plugging those vulnerabilities. They weren't fixing the weaknesses. And it made me quite, disenchanted with the whole world of cybersecurity. Now, again, it was probably just the certain customers I was working with, but it really made me re-examine how I wanted to continue on in the career. Until one day, I remember an assessment that we were working, still penetration testing a website for a customer. And that customer, the part of our process was that we had to Google the name of the website. So what I did was I went to Google and I typed in something like this, where site:example.com. And I put in the name of the domain that we were testing, and then file type :PDF. Let's see what type of PDFs might have been found on that site. And I remember getting the results back and looking through them and seeing, wow, there's a whole bunch of things. They had resumes and other stuff. And there was one document that was a help document. And that help document said, here's how to access this website. If you're having trouble logging in, go to the login screen. And what you should do is type in a username and a password like this, Jonathan Doe. And this is my really good password with an exclamation point, because it's long and complex and got that exclamation point. And I sat there for a moment and I thought, did they just give me a username and password to get into their website? So I had permission to go to their website. I went to their login page on their website. I typed in Jonathan Doe, and this is my really good password with an exclamation point because it's complex. And I got into this site. And I was like, this is incredible. I didn't even hack the website. All I did was literally log into it. And it was such an incredible feeling that doing reconnaissance and then finding something online could lead to the exploitation of a website. And I thought, this is really powerful. And all I had to do was do that Googling and then find the results and then go from there. Now, for those of you that are in cyber or have been in cyber too, you'll recognize this penetration testing kind of process or cycle that we go through. Starts where the number one is with reconnaissance and moves through the finding of vulnerabilities and then the quantifying them, and then the exploitation of them. Then we tell the customer about that. Then we go back and we do more recon. What I had learned was that recon had this special term called OSINT. And that was when my love of OSINT actually really blossomed. Now, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Micah Hoffman. Here's my LinkedIn and my Twitter handles. I do a lot of things in the open source intelligence world and have for several years. Currently run a training academy, myosint.training. I helped found the OSINT Curious project, which still has videos and blog posts out there. I also work for a nonprofit over here in the United States called the National Child Protection Task Force, where we help law enforcement find missing, exploited, and trafficked people. And then online, I go by the Web Breacher moniker. So this was a massive discovery for me, this OSINT term. And I thought, this is great. And so what I did was I started to learn more about OSINT. I shifted my career from cyber into OSINT, really focusing on that reconnaissance, that open source intelligence, and learning what it was, how people use it, and more. And so, as I said earlier, my job here today is to give you, well, my 10-step process for you to move farther along in your OSINT learning, whether you're a novice, just heard about the term OSINT today, or whether you've been doing OSINT for years. There are some tips and tricks that I'm going to show you to help move you along. Now, the first one's not going to be flashy or amazing, but it is a core thing that we in the OSINT world need to do, and that's write things down. We need to document. We need to track the progress that we've done. I've found this over the years that tracking my progress by writing things down, capturing things in some type of text-based manner, like in an Obsidian vault or in Notepad or in a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet, allows me to go back and learn from what I've already learned. Oh, I did learn about that back in this date at this time, but it also allows me to track my progress and see that growth that's happening inside of me. Many times what happens is we get so wrapped up in the things we don't know that we forget about all of the things that we've already learned. And it can be extremely discouraging to people. There's so much out there and the field is continuing to evolve. But you should keep track of the things you know and the things that you learn while you're doing it. It will help you later on. And I've kind of mentioned the second thing already, and that's keep track of those things that you don't know, right? When I was coming into the field of open source intelligence, I already knew about Google dorking or writing those Boolean queries in Google using search operators to get the maximum set of very specific results from the search engine. But what I didn't know was a whole bunch of other social media type of exploitation. I didn't know a whole bunch about other things that were just in the OSINT field. And so I had to learn. And one of the things that I did was created a spreadsheet, created a Google Doc, whatever it is. And in there, I put things that I don't know. And this list was humongous. And it started out with just, when did I add something? What is it? And so, so what I did was, as I went to conferences, as I went to learning events, as I talked with colleagues or just explored the field, I would add more and more things on here. Then when I had time, I would look at this list of things I don't know yet, and I'd work through it. I would seek to learn them or learn of them sufficiently that I could then cross it off. Again, just another way to track your progress. But I think you'll see even in today's presentations that there is a huge amount of really amazing work that people are doing. And for you to know everything is just not possible. So keep yourself a list. Keep track of what you're doing and keep track of what you want to learn. Next, learning more deeply is really important in the OSINT world. There are levels to OSINT. OSINT is like onions. There's lots of different layers to it. We can stick at the surface layers. Many of you might have gone to Facebook or to a social media profile of a target that you're looking at and collected data from the about section or from their profile, from their bio or their avatar, collected that. But there's always more that we can learn. There's deeper things that we can learn and collect, and that can be useful. The more we understand, the more our capabilities grow. And I want to show you that by teaching you a little bit about cybersecurity and IT, I guess. See, there's this thing called the Open Systems Interconnection, or OSI model. This is something that's hammered into us when we're doing things in IT and cyber, about the different layers that data moves through, either up or down, or moves through at different levels. And the idea here is that for any given device or system, like your mobile device or your computer or things out there on the internet like routers and switches, each of those things operate at one or more of these levels, and data goes up and down. And let me give you an example. So here is an example of the first 7 layers of the OSI model. This is the main layers. And I'm going to vastly oversimplify this because this is OSINT. This is not cyber. But at the physical layer, we can actually intercept things like physical radio signals, whether it's Bluetooth or RFID, or maybe it's Wi-Fi signals. We can get devices that intercept those and translate those into data. We can also learn more about operating systems and how a Mac or Windows or Linux computer works, whether they're special applications or configuration settings that each of them we can configure in each of them. There's always more that we can learn at that level. Then moving up this stack, we have things at the session and the transport layers like protocols and encryption, like HTTPS, that's SSL or TLS. Those things happen at this layer, and we can learn about those things. And then at the layers 6 and 7, we have things like our applications that we're using, things like Firefox and Chrome and Brave and Tor. A lot of the interfaces that we work on, they happen at layer 7. Now, this is all well and good, but I believe it was Bruce Schneier, the cybersecurity guru, that had proposed 3 additional layers. And that's above the computer. That moves into people, organizations, and governments. Now, at these layers, we can learn things about how people use their devices, behaviors. This is sometimes where we talk about things like social engineering or conning people, or those confidence tricks that some crooks use. We also have things like what laws happen at this level. Are you allowed to use breach data in your country or in your region? Are you not? We also have organizational constraints. I work for a certain company. That company says, even though it's legal to do these things in our country, our company does not believe that you should do that, so we're not going to let you do that. So there's other constraints to the OSINT work that we do. Now, taking all of these things in perspective, there's a lot of stuff to learn, from policies and laws all the way down to how electronic impulses go across a wire or across the airwaves. Now, you might be a person in OSINT, and you might know things like where that blue bar is on the right-hand side. You might be very comfortable using Firefox or Chrome in those plugins, and you might understand how people work and how they interact with each other on social media, but you might be a little bit less informed about how a computer works. How does Wi-Fi work? What is encryption, and how can it impact your work? And so you have some growth areas. Likewise, if you're more of a cybersecurity person or a person that loves computers, but maybe hasn't gotten too deep into the world of OSINT, you might really understand how operating systems work, and ports and protocols and IP addresses and domains work, but you're not really sure about how to apply it to people. And so you have growth areas in the people, organization, law areas, and maybe a little bit deeper into the systems as well. And then there's some people like me out there where a little bit about a lot of different things. Your knowledge areas have gaps. You're good on the Firefox and the Chrome, or you're good on the people, but you've heard of things like Wi-Fi sniffing or Bluetooth, but you don't really understand it. And so for you've got more gaps. Now, what does this mean? Why did I go through all of this? Well, the point is to take all of those gaps that wherever you are and put that stuff onto your things I want to learn list. May take that stuff that makes you feel less competent in the field and make it action items to learn from, to grow yourself. Next, we're going to talk about breadth. So we already talked about going deep, right? Going deep into that OSI model, going deep into how things work. You can always grab more. There's also breadth, going wide, knowing of all the different things. And this is one of the biggest things I see when I look on social media or am I reading things about people new to the field. Hey, I just heard about this term OSINT and I want to know where all the good stuff is. I want to be able to understand what the breadth of this area is. And so the first thing I suggest is go to Google. Go to Google and type in something like OSINT site : start.me. This is going to bring up it'll bring up over 1,400 results for Start Me pages that people have written, like Bruno Mortier here, and other people that have OSINT-based resources on them. These resources are just bookmarks, things that you can visit, websites you can visit. It is their favorite sites, and they've organized them, they've categorized them so that it's easier for you and I to access it. Oh, I need something on this social media platform. I can go to that page and there's where I need. Or maybe I'm doing something with maritime OSINT and ships on the ocean. Well, some of these places have things about transportation or resources on actually ships and shipping containers and things like that. So these are some really great resources that I think everybody should know about. Now, instead of me showing you the top 20 of these Start Me pages, what I want to do is start with one. This is, in my opinion, one of the best Start Me pages that is out there for OSINT. And this is by my good friend, Griffin Glynn. Griffin, who goes by the name Hatless Wonder, made a really good Start Me page that has a ton of different resources to help you learn and access all of those OSINT things that you need. Now, when you get to this page, it can still be overwhelming because each of the different categories like news and blogs or tool and resource collections has links to other people's pages or other tools and it just is really, really confusing to some people. So what I suggest, you can see on the page here, there are gold stars or yellow stars next to some of these entries. Those are the ones that Griffin feels are the best ones to start out with. If you're a seasoned OSINTer, go there and take your pick of what's out there. But if you're just starting out, focus on those with the gold stars. And there's a link to that page. My next suggestion to you is tip number 5, set aside time to learn. This goes with anything. Hey, don't get me wrong. I know that there are demands on your time, whether it's playing that Xbox game or kids or pets or another job or school. There are huge amounts of demands on our time. And I understand that. If you want to get ahead in the world of OSINT, heck, if you want to stay at a certain level in OSINT, you have to keep learning because the field changes. Now, I'm a little bit farther along in my career than some of you, and I've noticed that over time, my available time for actual doing that self-learning or doing formal learning, it changes. When I had kids, I absolutely had very little time for doing anything career development wise that was outside of my workday. After my kids left home, I had a lot more time. So what I'm hoping that you get from this is that the amount of time that you currently have to donate towards your self-learning or just learning about open source intelligence could and should change over the course of your life. So if right now you are really time constrained with a bunch of work with kids or your job is very demanding, that's okay. Make that list of things that later on, when you've got that time, you can focus on and you can do that work. When I used to work at a company in the past, one of the things that we did was we took our work weeks and we had the luxury of on Fridays, which were generally slower days, we would block out sometime in the afternoon on Fridays when productivity sometimes went down. We would block it out as our learning time. That's when our company said, hey, you can go and watch videos, you can go and take courses, you can try out new things. And we had that on our calendar. Now, not all companies are like that, and it might be that your day job has nothing to do with open source intelligence. So your learning may be pushed to the weekends, and that's how you're doing it. Or maybe you're one of those people that needs to push it to the nights, like after you finish your day job doing whatever, you have a couple of hours or minutes for you to donate to your self-learning. That's absolutely fine too. But make it a habit of putting it on the calendar. If you don't put it on the calendar, it doesn't, it's one of those things that can just keep getting pushed off and pushed off. So set aside time to learn. And remember, once you start learning things, or once you create this list, you can take these things and cross them out. Hey, I just have like 15 minutes to learn. I found a great tool that did this thing. So on this date, I actually finished this, and I can check that off. Because this is building that confidence. This is building that list of things you've tackled, which should increase your confidence and show progress. Remember to write things down too. Keep track of your notes on what you learned on what date, because one, things change, and two, again, it shows that progress. My tip number 3 is connect with other people. Connecting with other people is really important. There was a long time when I thought I could go and do my career solo. And what I found is that while I could, and I did, it was not nearly as rich or as diverse as when I started allowing other colleagues into my life. And so go and find a social media platform that you like. Find the OSINT area if there is one, or build an OSINT area and try to connect with people. I'm a very big fan of Reddit and the OSINT community that's over there. It's a very robust community, lots of questions being posed and tools being offered. But, Reddit's not for everybody. And so I go back to what Griffin wrote in his Start Me page. He has a whole section on discussion forums that you might like to join, Discords, Slacks, other groups that talk about open source intelligence, and hopefully are in a place where you are feeling comfortable. If you're a person that doesn't like Discord because you've never used it and it doesn't mesh with how you learn, hey, that's absolutely cool. Go find a Slack group, go find another group. But overall, find your people. You're going to go into one of these places and you're going to look and you're going to see lots of people talking about lots of things. And maybe it's confusing, or maybe they're not using language that you really like, or maybe they're not very supportive. That's fine. Put that group on pause and go find another one. There are groups out there for everybody, and there's places that are very welcoming in the world of OSINT. I've already mentioned this. In the world of OSINT, you continuing to learn the latest tips and tricks and tools is really important for just getting your job done. I'll give you an example. In 2018, I tweeted, hey, here's how to use Google Cache and keep yourself safe by adding the ampersand strip equals 1 to the end of it. Well, some of you already know where this is going. Google Cache is no longer there. Nico Dakins, Dutch OSINT guy, he tweeted out just, this month that Google Cache is gone and there's other tools out there. We find this all the time. Tools that we once used don't work anymore because APIs or application programming interfaces change. The websites themselves change. They add features, they remove features, and we need to stay up on that. That's where that community comes into play. That community can help you learn, oh, there's something changing over here, or here's how we're working to get around the changing that happened over there. But keep learning, keep growing. And the next part here is about how you learn. I know that each of you may learn in a different way. There's some of you that love capture the flag challenges. And of course, Griffin's Start Me page has a section on OSINT challenges. These challenges are ones that either ask you questions and then you have to go out to the world and find the answers using your open source intelligence skills, or they are more complicated and they might be scenario based and you're working through a larger type of story. There's some really good ones out there. And if you don't know where to start, Griffin's got Grail Hicks's or Sophia's challenges, Sophia Santos's challenges starred. Go over there. She has them ranked by easy, medium, and hard. Start with one of them and start working through it. If you don't know what to do, Google it. Chances are good that somebody else has solved it. Oh, and Sophia actually posts YouTube videos of how to do what she does in these exercises. So go try some things, learn by doing. But if you're not somebody that likes learning that way, go read a book. Ray Baker wrote this really good book about open source intelligence, and it's an interesting book, and she has a great style of writing too. Go get a book, read that, or watch a video, or watch many videos on YouTube. There's lots and lots of people that are telling you how to do stuff. The challenge is, which one of those people are trusted people? Which one of those people know how to do open source intelligence the right way, the ethical way, the legal way, or just at all? That's where some of these suggestions that you'll find on Griffin's page and other people's pages come into play. But there are lots and lots of videos out there, including this one by David Bombal with Griffin and I on there, talking about how do you get into OSINT. And we just did one that should be coming out soon, the top 10 tools in OSINT. So watch that. Give David a little follow there. When I'm on social media and I'm looking in the OSINT areas of the platforms, one of the biggest things I see is people asking for handouts. And you will be greeted with open arms in the community if you Google it first, right? If you want to know how to do something like, how do I use breach data in OSINT? Don't go to Reddit or some place and say, how do I use breach data in OSINT? Everybody, I need you to tell me. The world of OSINT is a little bit self-service, and we appreciate when you do a little bit of legwork. Run the query, look at all those 5,900 results, and then start going down them and looking at and reading those blog posts that are out there. And then, things like, oh, look, on Reddit, there's already people have asked about how to use breach data in OSINT, and there's videos that are out there that you can learn too. And then as we go down, we see even more videos and more things. Do the work for us, and then bring those questions to the community and say, hey, I watched this video, I read this blog, I'm still a little confused about how to do this. We are much more willing to open up and help you and give you more direction if you show us that you've actually tried to use those OSINT skills that you want to find the answer yourself. But we get it. The world's a complicated place, and that complicated place is one that you need a little bit of help through. My next to last tip is experiment. Explore. The world of OSINT is absolutely incredible. I think it's fascinating. If you are a person that loves computery things, diving into IPs and domains or DNS, there's a lot of work that can be done. If you're somebody that loves social media platforms, you can do stuff over there in all of the new and emerging platforms that are out there. You should be able to find a place in open source intelligence, from image analysis to mapping to object identification and social media exploitation. There's a whole bunch that could get you very excited. Find that thing. Watch talks, read things. Find that thing where you go, you know what? I want to learn more about it. And when you do want to learn more, go ahead and Google it. And if you don't know where all those things are, go ahead and Google that too. Best OSINT courses, best free OSINT courses. They're out there, and you definitely can take advantage of that free OSINT learning. There's also signing up for accounts on different platforms. If you're looking to find out how can OSINT be done on some platform, well, signing up for that platform as a valid user, and then looking at what the privacy controls are, what the URLs look like, what you can and can't restrict, and then trying to access that outside of the authentication can be really, really helpful in creating that method of accessing that platform in the future. So sign up for accounts on platforms if you want to do that. Dive deeper, right? There are things that I've already mentioned in this talk that you could go deeper on. For instance, built into most of the web browsers out there, there's this thing called web developer tools. And web developer tools helps you break apart the different pieces of the web page, helps you edit the web page, and it helps show where those connections, where those resources are being loaded from in the web page. There's some web pages that give you a little bit of a little bit extra, a little bonus. Like on our OSINT training page, there's a whole section there on the right hand side that says think, and it's just in the HTML source code. If you take a look, that's the thing about diving deep. There are secrets in there. There are new methods and new skills that you'll learn. You could participate in open source and intelligence types of projects. I run the What's My Name project. You might have heard of what'smyname.app, that wonderful username enumeration tool that Chris Poulter, OSINT Combine, created. Well, you can help us make that tool better. And if you want to contribute, we can teach you how to do that. There are a lot of projects out there that are very similar like to this, where it's an open source project. And if you have coding skills or just the desire, they'll teach you how to contribute. You create that community, and then you can move on from there. Heck, nowadays, you can just ask ChatGPT for a lot of things, right? Like, hey, explain to me in simple terms what Google Chrome web developer tools are and how they can be used in OSINT. You can have it explain that stuff to you. You don't have to go out to Google and ask the questions. That tool, ChatGPT and the other AI tools, are absolutely incredible for explaining known things to us, whether it's creating advanced Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheet formulas to grab things from external sources, or writing Python, or analyzing data. If you're able to use them, and if you have access, and if you're allowed to ask it the right questions, they can be extremely powerful. And this is a wonderful emerging field that's only going to get better and better. My last tip is help somebody else. What you're going to find is if you make that list of things I don't know, and if you start crossing them off, and if you start taking notes, you're going to find in a day, a week, a month, a year, that you've come a good ways. Turn around and reach out a hand. Talk to somebody in the community that maybe is just starting out and help them along. Answer their questions. Take some time and help them move forward in their work. Because even though there's a huge amount of open source intelligence data, educational materials, tools, tricks, videos out there, it's really confusing to people that are just getting into the field. So help somebody else. I thought I'd summarize them, put them all together here. This is my 11-step approach. I added one on the end. Keep in touch with me, all right? There's my LinkedIn. There's my email. I'm hoping that this talk was a little bit inspiring to you to continue your learning or learn in different ways. And if you're somebody that's been struggling in the OSINT field or getting into the field, just keep in mind that there is a lot of help, and there are a lot of resources and a lot of good people out there that want you to learn and want you to come in and do all the fun things in the open source intelligence field. With that, I say thank you to Authenticate for letting me be here and address you. I wish you a great OSINTUp